All right, I know we talk a lot about hidden gems and areas that fly under the radar and neighborhoods that are the best kept secret in a particular area. Well, I'm telling you, the neighborhood that we're gonna highlight in this video is all of those categories for Southwest Portland. A hidden gem, definitely one of Southwest Portland's best kept secrets. And bottom line, an area that you're going to want to learn more about. Have I piqued your interest yet? Stay tuned to learn more. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Oregon Relocation Team coming to you from Nansen Summit today. This isn't the exact neighborhood that we're going to highlight, but we are just up the hill from Arnold Creek. Again, for sure a hidden gem and definitely one of Southwest Portland's best kept secrets. Now, if this is your first time to the channel or you've been here and you haven't already and you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. All right, so Arnold Creek in Southwest Portland, really the southernmost neighborhood in Portland. It converges with Lake Oswego. So on the south side of Arnold Creek, you bleed into Lake Oswego, and there's kind of a seamless transition into this Forest Hills neighborhood of Lake Oswego. So either way, obviously, as you know, Lake Oswego is a very attractive, highly desirable area to live. And Arnold Creek really feels like a natural extension in terms of being a neighborhood really connected there to Lake Oswego. But you're in Southwest Portland, so you have closer proximity to the city and a little more modest in terms of home prices. Now, we help people from all over the country relocate to Portland and throughout the metro area. So there are, there's a huge variety as far as suburban areas and different neighborhoods of Portland itself. And there's plenty of areas that we could talk about, but Arnold Creek in Southwest Portland is an area that in particular is near and dear to my heart. It's not the neighborhood exactly where I grew up in, but this is a neighborhood that I spent a ton of time in as a kid. So I do have a little bit of a unique perspective on this neighborhood. I am also incredibly biased. So, these neighborhood streets, the little trails cutting through, across different streets or down to the school, for example, again, have a ton of nostalgia, a huge nostalgia factor for me. And just driving around this neighborhood, taking videos, flying the drone around, brings back a ton of memories. So I think that this neighborhood really does have something that could suit just about anybody's needs. It feels very suburban, very family-oriented type of neighborhood, mostly larger family homes, 4 bedrooms, 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. So that's going to be kind of the typical makeup of Arnold Creek. And you have, I think, like 94% owner occupants, so it's not like there's a ton of rentals. I don't think there's any commercial zoning, or at least there's no multifamily zoning necessarily, or apartments in the area. So you get a ton of consistency in that way, but there are a lot of different styles and types of homes that you can get in this area, from 100-year-old farmhouse type properties, and there's a ton of homes with a lot of land, half an acre, an acre plus. We'll talk more about that. If you're looking for an area, or rather a home in an area where you can get a little bit more land, a larger lot, Arnold Creek for sure has to be on your list. But you have some mid-century development, so ranches and split levels and tri-levels and things like that. There's a big section of the neighborhood that has like a 70s era feel, a lot of 70s builds on like Orchard Hill Lane, for example. And then you have a lot of 90s development too. So you have these kind of 90s like subdivisions, very typical of Portland and the metro area, traditional 90s style homes, very, very sought after. And there's also some new construction going on. So because you have a lot of these properties that are pretty big, and this neighborhood is just going to get built up more and more over time. There's still a fair amount of vacant land though, and so you've seen a fair amount built in the last 5, 10, 15 years. So again, it really runs the gamut in terms of a spectrum as far as types and style of homes that you can get. You might skew a little bit more expensive in Arnold Creek in this neighborhood, but really not by much. I think the biggest thing you're looking at being in Arnold Creek, especially if you were looking south into Lake Oswego or even further south, into West Linn is your property taxes are going to be a little bit higher. You're in Multnomah County. Now you have that proximity to Portland, right? So you are close to the city, close to the entertainment, all the great things that Portland has to offer. And then you have a neighborhood that almost feels more like a Lake Oswego or West Linn neighborhood, but you do pay the price a little bit in terms of the elevated property taxes. Now, it is about 90 degrees outside right now. It is mid-August and it's the hottest part of the day. So I'm gonna go hop on my computer and tell you more about Arnold Creek. Okay, so we're going to look at Arnold Creek from the perspective of a map, and I'm gonna show some footage of driving around and flying a drone as we're going along here. So here is downtown Portland up here. This is southwest Portland, where Arnold Creek is. So all this down here south of Arnold Creek is Lake Oswego. And you have Dunthorpe, Collins View, Lewis and Clark College, this area, bordered by the Willamette River to the east, a neighborhood called West Portland Park, just to the west of Arnold Creek, and then an area called Mountain Park, kind of bordering Arnold Creek. Mountain Park is Lake Oswego. Some of it's in Multnomah County, but if you live in Mountain Park, by and large, you would go to Lake Oswego schools. It's kind of an interesting area. It's like one of the biggest HOA communities in all of the Portland metro area. But this is actually the top of Mountain Park is where I was just standing at Nansen's Summit. If I can find it here on a map, this is where I was just standing introducing the video. So Arnold Creek, as you can see, is not an enormous neighborhood. I think it's like 1 square mile, something like that. And you have Stevenson Road going right down the middle. This is where the elementary school is, Stevenson Elementary. See a nice big property there, nice playground, great spot, if you live in the neighborhood to, go play, take your dog, whatever it may be. But that's right there, basically in the heart of this Arnold Creek neighborhood. Arnold Creek kind of has 2, maybe 3 different sections to it. So again, the primary corridor is Stevenson Street here. Zoom out a little. And you're connected by Boone's Ferry on the east side. Boone's Ferry will run north up to like Burlingame, Ida B. Wells High School, and ultimately you can get up into the city. Or Boone's Ferry will go south through Lake Oswego into an area of Lake Oswego called Lake Grove, and you can take that all the way down into Tualatin. So that's a pretty long corridor. Great for almost like a back road access, either getting up north into Portland or, again, getting down into Lake Oswego or all the way into Tualatin. And that's, again, bordering Arnold Creek. So it's nice to have Boone's Ferry Road right there, very accessible. On the west side, you have 35th, and 35th borders Arnold Creek here in this West Portland Park neighborhood in here. And on 35th, Southwest 35th, you have Jackson Middle School. So if you're going to Stevenson Elementary School, you're going to go to Jackson Middle School, and then Ida B. Wells High School up here in Hillsdale. So again, Stevenson Street runs through the middle, and the south side of Stevenson Street is kind of its own little neighborhood over here, in that, you're on the south side of kind of the main stretch, the main busy-ish road. I think it's like 35 mile an hour, driving. So it is a busy road. There's not a ton of homes on Stevenson Street, so it's not something you need to necessarily try to avoid. It is a very long, straight stretch, though, that's flat for the most part, and I don't know. I grew up in the area, and I can recall some people driving pretty fast from time to time. But you're in a school zone. It's not like a major thoroughfare by any means, like Boone's Ferry is, for example. But you have this south side of Arnold Creek, which primarily you have 70s, 80s, some 90s homes. A lot of bigger single family homes, 4+ bedrooms for the most part. There are some smaller homes too, but it's a nice pocket of the neighborhood. And then kind of an extension of this part to the south, you have some of these developments just north of Stevenson Street. So Woodley Heights, which is a really nice little community in there. And then you have Oak Creek over here, which is really kind of identical for the most part to Woodley Heights. And all of this is really, it's really connected. I mean, you can cut over from Woodley Heights through a little trail right here over to the school, or you can continue over to this part of the neighborhood over here as well. And then down here, you have these little offshoots, and then the Stevenson Court loop here, which is a little bit removed from the rest of the neighborhood right here. Part of the neighborhood that a lot of people really like, it may not be where they end up necessarily living, but an area that people really enjoy driving around and just kind of enjoying the natural beauty is right along Arnold Creek, along Arnold Street and Lancaster Road. This intersection is kind of the heart of this other part of the neighborhood. Excuse me. And if you see how wooded it is, I mean, you can't really distinguish too much, although you see more trees here in this area than you do down in the south part of the neighborhood. But it's kind of like a little creek valley through here, really beautiful. And you have a ton of little side streets with just a lot of privacy. I think it's an area that somebody looking to be living kind of in the trees, which is certainly for people relocating to the area, something that a lot of people do envision, living in Portland, living in Oregon. Obviously, we have a lot of trees and wooded areas. Arnold Creek and this Lancaster and Arnold Street corridor is, one of the best places you could be focusing your attention if that is, exclusively what you are looking for. But you have a mix of old and new for the most part in this stretch, but it is more or less disconnected, this north part of the neighborhood, in these more wooded areas. And then, this basically the areas, the pockets that are along Stevenson Street here. So Arnold Creek, if we zoom back out here, has a really nice, convenient location. It has this dynamic where you almost have like the best of both worlds as far as what you have access to and what you have in your immediate area. So again, Portland and downtown Portland, just to the north here, I mean, you're inside of 15 minutes getting on I-5 and getting up into the city, or getting up I-5, crossing the river, whether you cross at Selwood, just kind of straight east here over to the Selwood area, or if you cross the river and get up into Hawthorne or some of these cool Southeast Portland neighborhoods, or even further north, like if you're going to a Blazer game, for example, access into the city is really easy and convenient. You're up against the Terwilliger Curves here, which is this stretch of I-5, which I think the highest volume of car accidents that happen in Oregon happen along, or maybe on all of I-5 even, happen right here in the Terwilliger Curves. But don't be too alarmed. It's not that bad. But again, easy access to Portland. We talked about Dunthorpe in this neighborhood to the east, which is really cool, beautiful neighborhood, very stately homes, big lots. I mean, this is definitely a very wealthy area there in Dunthorpe. But before you get to Dunthorpe, you get to Tryon Creek State Park, which has miles and miles of trails. You can see this big trail system in here. It's not Forest Park, but if you're moving to Portland and Forest Park is something that's been on your radar and something that you are looking forward to getting out and checking out, Tryon Creek right here is an awesome area. To have that, to be able to basically walk, which you could from Stevenson Street, or rather from Arnold Creek, from this neighborhood, you can get over here and hit a trailhead up and down Boone's Ferry Road here. There's a number of different access points for Tryon Creek State Park. So that's really cool to have. Obviously, if you're moving to the area, you've, heard of Lake Oswego. A lot of people who like Lake Oswego, maybe it's a little bit cost prohibitive. You could look to Arnold Creek and find some really good options where you're not necessarily paying quite as much for a home in terms of like a price per square foot basis if we did a side by side comparison. But something about living in Arnold Creek that's really nice is you still have this great easy access to Lake Oswego, which what that means is, you might be going down to Lake Grove, this area, there's restaurants and shopping, but really it's the access to downtown Lake Oswego here, which, I mean, picturesque little small town downtown area. And a lot of this shopping and, these restaurants here are all pretty new. I think this is coming through kind of fuzzy. So if that's the case, for you, I apologize. But anyhow, I mean, you can see there's like ton of great restaurants and a lot of really cool stuff there in downtown Lake Oswego. Back to Arnold Creek here. So Lake Oswego's right there, probably a 10 or less minute drive to get to downtown Lake Oswego from Arnold Creek. You just the access to I-5 alone, I mean, that can get you, anywhere north-south on the I-5 corridor. You can get easy access to 217 here, which is going to take you up through Tigard, Washington Square Mall, into Beaverton, downtown Beaverton, Cedar Hills. Those areas start to get a little bit farther and a little bit longer to drive to. But again, the access to the freeways is really, really great. So I think a lot of people enjoy that about living in Arnold Creek. And whether it is access to something a little bit further out, like downtown Portland or Tigard or Beaverton, just the same locally, again, Tryon Creek Park, but also the rest of Southwest Portland, Multnomah Village, which is another really cool little kind of shopping area. If you haven't seen it, it's kind of like this little small town, almost like downtown Lake Oswego in a way, but Multnomah Village looks like exactly like it did like 60, 70 years ago. So I think a lot of people enjoy how like kind of quaint it is in that way. It's relatively unchanged after many, many decades. As you can see by the Renner's Bar and Grill sign, for example. So that is a quick drive, maybe 10 minutes from Arnold Creek to Multnomah Village. But then when you look at Arnold Creek itself, I mean, yes, you have Boone's Ferry kind of bordering one side, and then 35th, yes, that's kind of a way in and out for people living in this other neighborhood adjacent to the West Portland Park or Mountain Park, this part of Lake Oswego, Jackson Middle School, for example, and even Stevenson Street. I mean, somebody could kind of cut through here, but it really feels very private. You don't have these main busy thoroughfares going through Arnold Creek. And I think a lot of people living in this neighborhood really, really enjoy that because it is quieter, it is more laid back, probably feels a little bit safer in that way. There's no commercial development. There's no like apartments or multifamily for the most part. It's just a ton of very typical, single family home subdivisions, residential development. And anybody looking for kind of a more suburban feel in a neighborhood, I think is really going to enjoy Arnold Creek. Another thing about this area, which, for being in Portland proper, being so close to the city, the amount of space you can get as far as the lot sizes is really pretty rare. And there's plenty of pockets of the neighborhood where you have your typical 7,500 to 10,000 square foot lot, which is still relatively big. But if you have a 30 or a 3,000 square foot plus home, that has a larger footprint. So a fifth of an acre or a quarter acre lot doesn't necessarily feel as big when you have a big house, which there are a lot of big houses in this neighborhood. But if you if you zoom in a little bit here, you can see how much land there is here and how big these lots are. I mean, we're talking 2/3 of an acre plus in a lot of these cases. And, again, it's a smaller neighborhood, so it's not like there are dozens and dozens of these, and especially, not available necessarily at any given point in time. But I mean, you can just, again, you can see how big these lots are. And I mean, even up here, it's a little bit harder to tell in the trees, but a lot of these lots are huge. And that, again, is not a super common thing to find in Portland. The neighborhood itself is a little bit cobbled together, a mix of old and new. You have the areas that have been developed more recently, like in the last 30 years, you're going to have more sidewalks, things like that. And then areas that are older, you're going to have, some gravel roads, no sidewalks. So, there's varying degrees of how developed the area feels for the most part. But you have some of these subdivisions like Woodley Heights, like this Oak Creek area, and even along like Orchard Hill Way, Orchard Hill Lane. This is just a little more typical of what you would find in terms of residential development in the last 30 or 40 years. And there's sidewalks in through these areas and some of the more subdivision type areas. But then again, you have a fair amount of the neighborhood that isn't as accommodating in terms of getting out and walking around and the overall walkability. And the neighborhood even has its own neighborhood association website, which a lot of neighborhoods, a surprising amount of neighborhoods in Portland do. This isn't an HOA, so it's not like there's additional CCNRs or bylaws for Arnold Creek, but there is this neighborhood association where, again, they have this website, and there's just a good community element there as far as the communication, and making sure that everybody is on the same page and up to date with what's going on in the area. So I was browsing this website. There's not a ton of information. It's not like there's stuff getting published weekly or even monthly necessarily, but you have this board of directors, which it looks like there's some open spots even, but at any rate, there is that extra level of involvement, which is not uncommon, but still relatively rare for the most part when you look at Portland's 90 plus neighborhoods. So I think that's something that a lot of people enjoy as well. Maybe not having the neighborhood association in and of itself, but at least just the fact that there's that extra level of community involvement. And I think that can lead to just an overall more kind of inclusive community feel. So if Arnold Creek is a neighborhood that looks interesting, if you want to learn more about Arnold Creek or areas that are similar either in Portland or in different suburbs around the Portland metro area, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video. Schedule a Zoom call with us. We can talk more about it. If this video was helpful, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. And if you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. As always, we really appreciate you watching, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.